It's the Car and Bike Show on the NDTV network. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Patnankar. Thank you for joining us. These two cars, so much has been said about them, especially in the last few weeks. Ever since the Quid first arrived on the scene, all the comparisons have been drawn to the other entry cars in the market. But the main rival is the Alto. Now, the Quid is also one of the main and very prominent contenders for the annual CNB Awards. We've got a few more that we want to sort of recap for you and remind you of, because we believe that they will probably end up playing a big role at this year's ceremony. I'm going to start off with a few of the bikes.
The AS150 gets a freshly tuned engine which is air-cooled and feels refined and delivers linear acceleration. While Bajaj claims it's all new, it really means that the existing Pulsar 150cc engine is now smoother with improved refinement. The 150cc engine doesn't feel too strained around winding roads with a fairly smooth 5-speed gearbox. Mid-range torque is plenty and ideal for regular commuting speeds, although at higher revs some vibrations do creep in.
Yes, the 200 RS is based on the NS, but there are differences that go beyond the fairing. The RS 200 has the same engine, but it gets a new head and, more importantly, fuel injection as against the carbureted fuel supply in the 200 NS. That takes power up 1 bhp. The throttle response is definitely crisper and more instant on this bike, and that's, well, sort of needed to offset the extra 15 to 20 kgs of weight that gets added thanks to the fully faired plastic bodywork and other technical components like the ABS unit. What we really liked is how neatly and quickly the RS200 turns into corners. The steering is very responsive, and the slightly modified construction and compound of the MRFs that the RS was riding on makes a world of a difference. The brakes now. The RS200 is offered in two trims, ABS and non-ABS. We were on the saddle of the ABS version the whole time though, and that is a single channel, which means only the front wheel gets ABS equipped braking. Under hard braking, the front did keep its line and the brake bite was sufficiently effective. We'd have liked more feedback from the lever though, but the rear end tends to slide. Not at all what we expected, and a bit unnerving, frankly. The RS200 is not as entertaining as the R15 or the RC200. Those bikes are in proper full attack mode from the word go, whereas the RS, well, you need to spend a little more time to get familiar with its boundaries and character. Its limits are not as great as its rivals, but at being a flaunt machine, it may actually be quite good as it manages to catch the eye in an instant, and that might be great, especially for younger buyers. At 1,30,000 for the ABS and 1,18,000 rupees for the non-ABS bike, it's not quite a steal either.
Mahindra Mojo is finally here. The bike comes to the market after years of re-engineering, but the good news for Mahindra is that despite the delays, the bike has retained tremendous interest. But that also means higher expectations. And so we went into this ride hoping the bikes really got enough to get one's mojo running. 300cc liquid-cooled engine is extremely refined, almost surprisingly so, and the bike retains its composure even if you push it on the open road. No vibrations or strain.
Now those are just what we see as some of the key contenders, but you know what, the awards always throw up surprises, so take a look at all our nominees on our website. That's carandbike.com/CNB Awards, and you'll find that there are plenty of contenders. Let's take a short break here. We come back with some of the stronger cars after this break. Welcome back to CNB. This year at the awards is looking like a really strong year for the compacts. Now I'm talking about all kinds of compacts, whether it's a sedan or a hatch or even an SUV. These are the main rivals for the big honors.
The Hyundai Creta is based on the same platform as the new i20 and has finally come to us after much waiting. What works for the car are its well-designed proportions and good looks. It has been launched with 2 diesel engines and 1 petrol. Pricing is premium, sadly, at between 8,59,000 and 11,19,000 rupees for the petrol and 9,46,000 to 13,60,000 rupees for the diesel variant. The styling is Hyundai's Fluidic Sculpture 2.0 design language, which is accentuated by the headlamps, front grille, rising waistline and the tail lights. Another part that you will like is the car's handling. It is a nice taut sense you get from it, and I have to say though, of course, that there's a little bit of body roll that creeps in only at really high speeds and primarily when you're cornering or in fact just on a sort of a bank on a highway. But otherwise, for the most part, it's a nice satisfying feel that you get. The suspension setting as well as the way the overall car's road manners respond is something that I think most people will appreciate. The Creta's 1.6 litre engine itself is reasonably peppy and powerful, and more so on the manual, but not all that exciting on the auto. Hyundai could have done what it usually does and undercut the rivals by pricing aggressively and compelling competition to react. By going higher, Hyundai may have also done this because of its constrained production capacity, and that way it won't feel the pressure as it otherwise would have. The most important car launch from Maruti Suzuki in a long while, that is the Baleno. The Baleno will be made primarily in India, and eventually Suzuki sees it selling in 100 markets. The Baleno is being launched with 3 drivetrains, the 1.2 petrol in manual and CVT avatars and the 1.3 DDIS diesel manual. I have now driven all 3 cars, and the first impression is that this is an ample and spacious hatchback. The Baleno has a very smartly designed and sexy looking instrument cluster. It's highlighted with a blue arc on top. The dials are simple but very sharp, and in the top trims you get a TFT information display screen at the center. Now this 4.2-inch screen gives you trip information like distance, time taken, mileage, etc., and also has real-time mileage, distance to empty, an analog type clock display, outside temperature, gear change indicator, and this, a real-time torque and power output display. Yes, it's a gimmick, but boy, it works. Diesel unit is the pick of the pack for me. I was reminded of what a revelation the Swift diesel had been when it first arrived. I'll never forget that first drive, and even though the Baleno isn't quite as sporty, it gets close. And yes, that is pretty much the same engine too. Maruti could have opted for the 90 bhp version of this 1.3 litre engine, but it stayed with 74 bhp for the higher mileage figure, a superb 27.39 kilometers per litre. The diesel Baleno feels planted and is fun to drive, with a sporty handling manner. The steering and suspension have been well worked out, giving the car a mature feel. Ride quality is pretty good, front and back, with the suspension being tuned for comfort, but yet taut enough to throw this car around a bit. The diesel though puts out enough torque to easily accommodate a 6th gear, but let's get to the variant that does have the CVT option. The familiar 1.2 litre K-Series engine is well suited to the car, it's powerful enough too, and yes, comes with both options, the 5-speed manual or the CVT, both of which offer 21.4 kilometers to the litre. I did drive both versions and I have to say the manual is way more fun. The car responds better and quicker, while the CVT is sluggish by comparison. Maruti needs the Baleno to be a big hit, especially for the sake of its Nexa dealer network. And so I think it needs to undercut the best-selling i20 and blow the competition out of the water. My gut tells me that you can expect very aggressive prices, with the petrol likely starting at 5,20,000 and the diesel at 6,25,000 rupees ex-showroom. And maybe Maruti could go even more aggressive than that. And so we possibly have a Baleno blockbuster coming soon. The new Honda Jazz. The Jazz has two engine options. The 1.2-litre petrol has been borrowed from the Brio but has a slightly higher power output, though it is still tuned for efficiency. You can opt for either the 5-speed manual gearbox or a CVT with paddle shifters. Inside, the Jazz is spacious in a double XL way, and that really is the ultimate USP in this segment, isn't it? The wheelbase is longer than the old cars, and so space inside the cabin has improved quite a bit. We do like how the rear seats recline for that extra comfort, but that option only exists on the top-end model. The seats are fairly comfy, but we're not crazy about the black fabric.
Given the success of the first generation car, the new Figo was always going to be a hatch besides the already launched Figo Aspire sedan. Both cars are based on Ford's all-new platform and share engines and styling. The Figo gets the same petrol and diesel engines as the Aspire, including the dual-clutch automatic, which buyers will appreciate.
The Ford Figo sedan concept was our favorite concept car at the 2014 Auto Expo, and it showed a lot of potential. But Ford was in no rush to launch the car, as there was tough rivals to beat in the segment. And so it knew the package had to be better to make a real impression. Subcompact sedan designs in the market have so far been a bit uninspiring, thanks mainly to a 4-meter length restriction. But the Ford Aspire brings in fresh appeal, at least from the front. The Aston Martin-inspired grille and swept-back headlamps catch your eye immediately. But what gives it a bolder look are the two bulging lines on the center of the hood. The 14-inch alloys do look a bit small. Maybe a 15-inch wheel would have added more character to the profile. The Ford Aspire has 3 engine options, and that includes the 1.5-litre petrol automatic drivetrain borrowed from the Fiesta. We began our drive with a 1.2-litre petrol, knowing fully we had to drive through Udaipur city. And the engine needs to deliver in city traffic, doesn't it? It's a tweaked version of the existing Figo Hatch engine and is refined with smooth and quick acceleration, but it does feel underpowered, so you do have to downshift a lot more than you want. On the highway, the engine takes its time to get to cruising speeds. A compact sedan that excites is a rare breed these days, and so Ford will no doubt look to boost its India aspirations with this model.
It is not a chopped-up MUV, it isn't derided from an existing model, it is a proper SUV and yet a subcompact one. That's the new TUV 300 from M&M. The engine is Mahindra's M-Hawk 80, which is a 1.5-litre 3-cylinder diesel engine which borrows from two worlds. Quanto's 1.5 litre and the Scorpio's 2.2 litre unit. Power output stands at 84 bhp, and though that might sound less, it's the twin-scroll turbocharger and dual-mass flywheel that makes a lot of difference in the way that the car drives. Yet the lack of power is evident as it runs out of breath after the 3500 RPM mark. Mahindra has also given the TUV 300 the stop-start system only on the T8 variant.
The recent flooding in parts of Tamil Nadu saw lots of vehicles submerged in water, especially those parked in basements in low-lying areas. Most owners will look to get rid of these cars by selling them through an online portal, and so we recommend that you stay away from these flood-damaged cars. Here's how you can spot any water-related damage in the used car you are considering. Check under the vehicle's floor mats and even the trunk for mud or rust. The smell from the underside of the mats might also be a good indicator for moisture and dampness. Check for rusting on small parts like screws under the hood or around the doors. Also look for mud and debris. Also check the service records for any flooding-related repair work on the vehicle.
And with that, it's time to end the show. I hope you liked it. Keep your feedback coming to me on Twitter at Sid Partnenkar, or chat with us on Facebook. Facebook.com/CNB show is the URL. Please promise me you'll wear your seat belts. We are coming up to the end of the year, and that could be a New Year resolution as well for you. And of course your helmets as well if you're on a two-wheeler. We have plenty more on the program next week. Join us then.
Drive through life, destiny, roads unknown.
Over the next 6 months, we are taking you on an epic adventure.
Through 6 continents, 60,000 kilometers and 6 months. Drive, for borders don't exist. Nights, days mean little.
Different places, fascinating people. And joining me all through that will be this car.
6 drivers stitch the world together through one great journey as they chase the sun across the earth.
So these guys are doing something quite historic, and it'll be great to have you a part of it.
Mercedes-Benz presents The Great Overland Adventure every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. on NDTV Prime.